You walked into a room and forgot why. Again, you stood there scanning the walls, hoping your brain would catch up. And for a split second, you felt something worse than frustration. You felt afraid. Because somewhere in the back of your mind, a quiet, terrifying thought crept in. What if this is just how it is now? What if this is the beginning of something you can't stop? Here is the truth that no one is telling you. That moment of walking into a room and forgetting, that is not a sign of early decline. That is not your brain giving up on you. But the way you are responding to it, the stress, the self-blame, the assumption that memory just fades with age, that response is actually making it significantly worse. And there is a specific 60-second exercise that a growing number of neurologists are now using with patients to reverse exactly this kind of memory fog. Not slow it down, reverse it. We will get to exactly what that is. But first you need to understand why your brain is doing this to you in the first place, because without that context, the exercise makes no sense and you will not stick with it. So let us talk about what is actually happening inside your head. Your brain is not a hard drive. It does not store memories the way a computer saves a file. Memory is a living biological process, and it depends almost entirely on something called synaptic connectivity, the strength and speed of the connections between your neurons. When those connections are strong, recall feels effortless. A name, a date, a face, it just appears. When those connections are weak, fragile, or cluttered, you get that agonizing tip of the tongue feeling, where you know that you know something, but you just cannot reach it. And here is what is genuinely disturbing about the modern world. Almost everything about the way we live right now is systematically destroying those connections. Think about a typical morning. You wake up, and the first thing you do is check your phone. Immediately, your brain is flooded with information. Notifications, news, social media, emails, before you have even had a glass of water. Your prefrontal cortex is already overwhelmed. And this matters because the prefrontal cortex is the command center for working memory. It is the part of your brain that holds information in the short term and decides what gets transferred into long-term storage. When it is flooded, it cannot do its job properly. Information hits your brain like water on a non-stick pan. It just slides off. Nothing sticks. Now consider this. You probably already know that sleep is important for memory. You have heard that before, but what the mainstream conversation misses is the specific window that matters most. There is a stage of sleep called slow wave sleep, sometimes called deep sleep, and during this stage your brain performs something researchers describe as synaptic pruning and memory consolidation. It is essentially taking everything you experience during the day, deciding what matters, and literally rebuilding the neural architecture around those memories to make them more retrievable. Most adults are severely shortchanging this stage without realizing it, not because they are sleeping fewer hours, but because of the habits they have in the hour before bed. Alcohol, blue light from screens, late night eating, each of these suppresses slow wave sleep dramatically. So even if you sleep for 8 hours, you might be getting barely 90 minutes of the sleep your memory actually needs. And day after day, that deficit compounds. But here is where it gets genuinely interesting, and this is the part that most memory advice never reaches. The single biggest driver of memory deterioration in otherwise healthy adults is not age, it is not genetics, it is chronic, low-grade psychological stress. And I do not mean the dramatic stress of a crisis, I mean the constant background hum of modern anxiety. Deadlines, financial pressure, social comparison, the endless scroll, the feeling that you are always slightly behind. That kind of stress floods your brain with cortisol, and cortisol, when it becomes chronically elevated, is essentially toxic to the hippocampus. The hippocampus is a small seahorse-shaped structure deep in your brain, and it is the absolute epicenter of memory formation. Cortisol literally shrinks it. It reduces the density of neurons in that region and impairs the growth of new ones. This is called neurogenesis suppression, and it is one of the most well-documented findings in modern neuroscience. You are not forgetting things because your brain is getting old. You are forgetting things because your brain is drowning in stress hormones that are physically altering the structure responsible for memory. Now, that is the part of this story that should genuinely alarm you. But that is also only half of it. Because here is the extraordinary flip side of that same neuroscience. The hippocampus is one of the only regions in the adult brain that can genuinely grow new neurons. This is called adult neurogenesis. It was considered scientifically impossible until the late 90s. Researchers were stunned when they discovered it. And what drives neurogenesis in the hippocampus? Two things, primarily: physical movement and a very specific kind of focused cognitive stimulation. And this is exactly where that 60-second exercise comes in, the one that neurologists are increasingly integrating into clinical practice. Stay with me, because the science behind why it works is what will make it click for you. Before we get there, there is one more layer to this that almost nobody talks about. Your memory is not just one system. Neuroscientists now understand that memory is a collection of distinct systems operating in parallel. You have semantic memory, which stores facts and general knowledge. You have episodic memory, which stores personal experiences. You have procedural memory, which handles skills and habits. And you have prospective memory, which is your ability to remember future intentions, to remember that you need to do something later. Most people who complain about memory problems are specifically struggling with episodic memory and prospective memory. The walk into the room problem, that is prospective memory failure. The blank on a colleague's name problem, that is episodic memory retrieval failure. And both of these are exquisitely sensitive to stress, sleep, and attention quality, which means both of them are far more recoverable than most people believe. Here is where the picture starts to come together. Neurologists working in cognitive rehabilitation have been exploring a deceptively simple practice that targets the exact intersection of these failing systems. It is not a supplement. It is not a brain training app. It is not a complex meditation protocol. It is a 60-second exercise that you can do anywhere. And the mechanism behind it is solidly grounded in what we now understand about how the brain encodes and retrieves information. The exercise is called deliberate encoding through mental narration, and the way it works is this. At any given moment during your day, before you walk into that room, before you put down your keys, before you leave a conversation, you pause for 60 seconds and you narrate out loud or silently exactly what you are doing and why. Not a vague thought, but a precise, intentional, internal sentence. I am placing my keys on the kitchen counter because that is where I always look first. I am walking into the bedroom to get my phone charger because the battery's at 12%. I am noting this person's name, James, because he works in the finance department. What you are doing is forcing your prefrontal cortex to actively engage with the information at the moment of input, rather than allowing it to pass through on autopilot. You are essentially creating a deliberate memory trace instead of a passive, fragile one. The reason this works comes down to a principle called the levels of processing framework, developed by psychologists Craik and Lockhart in the 1970s and consistently validated since. The deeper you process information at the moment of encoding, the stronger and more retrievable the memory becomes. Shallow processing, a glance, a half thought, produces weak memories. Deep processing, semantic, contextual, self-referential, produces durable ones. The 60-second narration exercise forces deep processing on demand. It is a manual override for a brain that has been conditioned to skim the surface of every experience. But the neurological benefit goes even further than that. When you narrate your actions with intention and specificity, you are also activating your brain's default mode network in a controlled way. This is the same network that is active during rest and reflection, and it plays a critical role in memory consolidation. You are essentially giving your brain a micro-consolidation moment in real time, bridging the gap between experience and storage that normally only happens during sleep. Over time, neuroimaging studies are beginning to support this. Consistent deliberate encoding practice appears to strengthen the functional connectivity between the prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus. You are not just using your memory better, you are rebuilding the neural pathways that make memory possible in the first place. And that is the part of this that should make you feel something very different from fear. Because what the neuroscience is telling us is that the brain you have right now is not fixed. It is not a finished product, quietly winding down. It is an organ of extraordinary ongoing plasticity, and it responds to how you use it. The memories you are missing right now, the names that slip away, the tasks you forget, the mental fog that follows you through the day. These are not permanent features of who you are. They are signals from a system that is overloaded, understimulated in the right ways, and desperately in need of the kind of deliberate attention that modern life has trained you out of giving it. Start tomorrow morning. Before you touch your phone, before you open an app, before you engage with anything outside your own mind, sit still for 60 seconds and narrate in detail what you intend to do in the next hour. Not a to-do list, a narration. I am going to drink a glass of water, then make coffee, then sit at my desk and work on the report that is due Thursday. This single act, done consistently, begins to rewire the relationship between your intention system and your memory system. Then throughout the day, use the 60-second narration at every moment of transition, walking into a room, putting something down, leaving a conversation. Make the invisible act of memory into something deliberate and conscious. You will notice the difference within days, not months. Not because the exercise is magic, but because you will finally be giving your hippocampus what it has been starved of: structured, meaningful, low-stress encoding opportunities. That is the real secret here. Your brain does not need more information, it needs better moments of attention. And 60 seconds, applied with intention, is enough to start giving it exactly that. If this changed the way you think about your own brain, hit like and subscribe. The next video goes even deeper into how your gut microbiome is directly controlling your cognitive performance. And that one will genuinely surprise you.